If a curl popped out of my head, they called me nappy-headed. They'd make fun of my thighs because I got thick Puerto Rican delicious thighs, you know what I mean? Like, if I get too dark, they call me darky, you know, or the darkest one darky or whatever. And it's like these things that make you feel insecure.
This was within your own family.
My own family. I would say I was black when I was a kid. I'm like, I'm black. And my grandmother was like so proud Puerto Rican, and she is a straight up, if you look at her, she's a black woman. Right. So she locked me in her, this is the 90s, everybody. She locked me in the car, and she said, you're not gonna leave this car until you say you're Puerto Rican. Right. And I'm like, I'm black. I'm like, it's kind of a funny story, but when you think about it, whoa, there's some deepness that's there. And this is a complexity that other Latinos don't deal with.
Right. Eli Vazquez.
What's up, man?
You wanna check it out?
What's up? I feel good. This is nice.
Yeah, man. We got a nice little setup here, man. Enjoyed. I met you when you popped in for the zoo recently. You did an amazing job.
Thank you, man. It was a good time, dude. Everyone was super cool, like super professional. Like, you're on it. Yeah. You're like, ba, 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 ba. I was like, oh, we called audibles on the day.
Right.
We made it happen.
Well, yeah.
Pro.
Yeah. I'm Cuban from Miami, so everything goes fast, for better or worse. You know what I'm saying? But I appreciate the way you speak your mind, and what's cool is we'll talk about the subject that you are coming in on, the whole Rogan controversy. We can get into maybe add-on opinions later, but it's the way you handle it. I noticed that you can handle difficult and controversial subjects in a really positive, and very easygoing light that makes people kind of comfortable to talk about it, which is what we need right now in this world. Tell me a little bit about, like the self-hype. Is that your company? It's called Self-Hype?
Yeah.
Yeah, tell me about this like positive mindset, life coaching thing that is kind of like the backbone to your otherwise comedic kind of, persona.
I don't know. I feel like, I think I started in these digital streets with just not knowing like my identity or being open with my self-consciousness. And I think that diving into that world of what makes you self-conscious or insecure turns into comedy. So if it's me learning Spanish in 90 days and not knowing what the hell I'm talking about, it's pretty comedic, but relatable. But yeah, with self-hype, man, I always say, like, the worst days of our lives are the greatest days of our lives. And it was in 2016 where I was making viral videos every week. I was just crushing it in these digital streets. I had a whole full-time job with health insurance and all that. And I was just, personally, I was overwhelmed. Social media was just plaguing me. I was working in the digital world, making YouTube videos. And I just wasn't working on my personal self. And I felt trapped. I felt like I wasn't reaching my potential. I had my mental breakdown. I had anxiety attacks. I had a panic attack, and I knew I had to make a change. And I dove full on all personal development, all mental health, all that. Like I took took Tony Robbins course. Like I listened to audiobooks.
Joe Dispenza. Have you heard of him?
I know. I haven't heard
he's like the new spiritual kind of practical Tony Robbins.
Really? Yeah, okay. I gotta check him out. But yeah, so it's like, I use the things that work for me, and it really changed my life. And I was like, not a lot of people from like my circle knows about this. And the coaching spaces and the personal development spaces are all very like white dominating spaces. So I was like, let me just share my personal development journey, my mental health journey. And I don't have it all figured out, but maybe some people I could help them along the way of just things that I learned, little nuggets and things like that. So I was getting a lot of traction, a lot of followers, and someone was like, yo, we should call this self-hype. It's not self-help, it's self-hype. It's a little more inclusive, it's a little more for the community, it's a little more chill, it's a little more dope, it's a little more accessible. So I was like, cool. And then, my friends that were coaches were like, dude, you should create a program, just like show people how to use social media to personally help your life and how to not make it so toxic. And I was like, okay, I know social media, I know how I used it to help my mental health journey, so let me help other people as well. So I launched it in 2019, and it has been phenomenal, and I've been able to work with like brands and travel and do workshops and speaking at Penn State next week.
Congrats.
And I've been able to help people around the world with that.
You actually seem, and it's funny because I'm getting to an age where I'm now starting to meet people that are much younger than me, but are getting to that age where they're actually self-realizing, and you have a very healthy mental energy state, emotional vibe. You know what I mean?
I appreciate that, man.
But I think most guys your age, I don't know that I could say that to.
Yeah, I mean, I think with like, and this is funny. I recently blew up on TikTok, and was not like, oh god, another platform. Like, I'm in social media. I don't like social
That's how
media.
I feel about all the additional platforms. I'm like,
I don't like it so much time. And then I'm like, okay, I have to check my ego because I'm helping people. Like, the stuff I do helps people, so I need to check my ego and just do it. And I remember I was like, a date was late. I had a date that was late, and I was like, I have a lot of friends that are women, and they're all complaining about like, oh, does he really like me? I don't know if he really likes me. And I'm like, he doesn't like you enough. If you have to question, he don't like you. So I ranted for 3 minutes on TikTok, 1.4 million.
Wow.
And now I have like 30K on TikTok, and it's like all these people that are now like, oh, give me advice on this, give me advice on that, like this, that, and the other. And the big thing I try to tell them is like, you know, it's a lot of women, like younger women that are like, just like, yo, what is my guy thinking?
Right.
And I'm like, these guys are insecure. I've been that guy. Like, we're seeking validation through other people, like us men, young men. Like younger men, like when we're growing up and stuff, like our value system is based off how many girls we get.
Right.
It's not based off the work we do on ourselves. And that we don't figure that out till hopefully we figure that out later down the line. So it's all this insecurity that we're not dealing with. So I try to like open up the door into the world of dudes because I was that guy. So, but it takes a lot of work to reach that.
I think you really nailed the niche. By the way, you can hear me on your head. Okay, I just want to make sure. I think you really nailed the cool niche because a lot of times women are speaking to women, and that's healthy, and a lot of times guys are speaking to guys, and I think that's healthy. But it's very interesting when you kind of cross the aisle, so to speak, right? And so I think that you have a lot of female fans, followers, viewers that found a guy that they seem to trust. Let's be honest, they don't know you completely.
Right,
you might
right,
be a complete.
I don't know. We don't know.
But you really present a really cool, trusting, comfortable vibe for them to listen to what is going through a guy's head, whereas they might have trouble with other male voices. So you got that locked down. But I think that guys will start following you because they're gonna watch how you talk to those women about the way guys are, and in that way, indirectly, because sometimes guys need some indirect stuff. They don't want to feel like in the spotlight like we are right now. They'll learn something about themselves watching you talk to women about them.
That's what I hope. And my mom told me this years ago, and it took me years to finally listen and figure this out. But once I adopted this, oh my God, it changed my life. And fellas, if you're listening to this, as long as you're honest, you'll always have a second chance. And like that has been true across the board. Like painful honesty, they'll hate you today, but they will respect you forever. That is like the key.
Okay, so I've definitely learned that. And here's the thing: they end up liking you, even especially when you're honest about like, I'm not ready for a relationship right now, or I'm not ready for a relationship with you. Not that you're not amazing, but I said, and they end up liking you more for that. It's a little bit of, like I was dating somebody recently, and I was telling her I'm kind of like in a state right now where I need to focus on myself. I don't want to hold you back from meeting somebody who might be a little bit more ready to jump in. Maybe at another time I would have been in a different state, and she's like, oh, like it pisses me off because I'm actually liking you more. That you're like you're doing exactly what you say you were gonna do. That's a big thing.
Yeah.
So, are you in a relationship right now?
No.
Okay, you got to focus on your movie. Let's talk about the movie.
Oh, yeah, that's why.
So, what did you get? A development deal with Netflix or something? Who's going to do it?
Well, it is going to happen. I'm putting it out in the universe. Y'all hear it first.
Yeah.
Eli Vazquez is going to get a development deal with Netflix or another streaming platform.
But you're already making the movie regardless.
Well, what it is LATV teamed up with Netflix.
Right.
And Netflix is funding 5 Afro-Latino filmmakers' short films.
Okay.
So they're sponsoring it. They're putting it up. They're giving us like executive mentorship. I just talked to executive that saw my film last week, or the script and all that. So we get the full red carpet
Did they
trades
give you
and all
a
that.
budget?
And they give us a budget. They gave us some good bread for it as well. So
this is a short film that you're doing as this fellowship, but we'll be able to see this short film on Netflix where the platform is. The platform that's going to host it is not set in stone.
Not set in stone yet, but it will premiere at LATV in June this year. So yeah, we have a premiere date. We're getting it done this year in June. It's premiering.
You got a lot of work to do, buddy.
Oh yeah, that's why I was 10 minutes late. I was like, hey man, if there was no film, I would be here 10 minutes early.
No, I know. You're good at that. Okay, so what's the film?
So the film is called Bodies Will Tumble and Roll. It is about a dope black and brown dysfunctional cheerleading team in the inner city that their coach forces them to settle their differences in a cabin in the woods. When the coach goes missing, they need to learn the value of teamwork and come together as a team in order to save her from serial killers.
serial killers who might be like Deliverance level hillbillies.
Yeah, Deliverance level hillbilly. Exactly. So it's like
I like that you know what Deliverance is.
yeah, exactly. So I just like this classic American comedy. I always say it's like Tropic Thunder meets Bring It On.
I imagine it's
very,
like a dark comedy.
It's a dark comedy, yeah. So you think of like Shaun of the Dead, but with just like killer hillbillies and black and brown, Afro-Latina, all that.
So
like,
what did you present to LATV Netflix to get behind you on this? I imagine you already had a script and maybe a deck, or did you shoot something beforehand? Or?
No, so all we do is like submit a treatment. So like I've had this idea for a while.
Okay.
But I was planning to make it into a feature film. So I just had to whittle it down to the bare bones of what it needed to be. But you just send like a 3-page treatment, send it off, your bio, why you made this. And then they picked it up and got it. I was drinking, it was my mom's birthday, and I'm a digital nomad now, so I just live out of a suitcase. I'm just like traveling. So like, I was like, I'm not even gonna be in the country next year, in December. And I was drinking tequila with my mom. It was her birthday. We're all turning up like, yeah. And then I got the email, and I'm like, you got it. I was like, oh my God, I started hyperventilating, and it just planned out the next 6 months of like my 2021. So I was like, I'll be in LA. So yeah.
But you're settled in LA for the time being now, right?
I'm going back and forth. So
To
like
what, to
I have
Chicago?
To Chicago or whatever the wind takes me. I want to like chill in like Mexico City, and like I need to learn Spanish, man. I
need to
like,
learn Spanish.
I need to learn Spanish, so I'm like trying to
was a
take
big
the
fan.
effort to do it. But the movie's dope, man. I mean, we have such a good team, such a great cast. Chelsea Rendon is one of our leads.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she's awesome. Yeah, we just have like such a good crew, like all like Afro-Latinos, Afro-Latinas, all people of colors.
Did you reach out to Chelsea yourself, or was that LATV Netflix kind of hooked you up and said, hey, if you need talent, here's some of the people that we work with?
Oh no, me and Chelsea are homies.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
Latinx Hollywood's really small.
Right.
Like being on Pedal Like
Yeah.
and like going to events and like everyone's really chill. Like everyone's cool. Like you vibe with who you vibe with. And yeah, I linked up with Chelsea and we were just Instagram friends. And yeah, I just reached out. I was like, here's the script. Do you like it? Do you want to do it? And she's like, yeah.
Are you acting in the movie?
No.
Okay.
Maybe there's a cameo.
Okay, so here's the thing. It's very interesting because I actually, by the way, I'm gonna give you this. This is a book I wrote about like the Cubans that started the rave scene in the 90s, and then one gets killed by drug dealers that he robs, and the other one has to save his life that I co-wrote it with. So I'm trying to just settle into writing.
Yeah.
I do a lot of stuff in front of the camera, obviously,
Right.
but I don't really like. I like this. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Like, I tried acting when I was a little younger. I did a commercial. I was in a couple of films. I was in Latino Logs.
Oh, yeah.
With Joy Medina, who's gonna come after you to shoot this. But I don't really care about being like as a storyteller. I'd rather be behind the camera now, even though I have experience and a certain comfort level in front of the camera. You have a certain comfort level in front of the camera.
Yeah.
But you want to direct a film and be behind it. You want to write and direct it. So is that? But you also have this Instagram presence where you're talking to people and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
are you going to try to balance it all out, or what's the thing that if gun to your head, you have to pick one thing?
Ooh.
Are you going to be a filmmaker from behind the camera as a writer director, or you're going to be a voice and a face that we relate to?
Oh my God, you just had to put the gun to the face thing, man. I will say, I guess at the end of the day, when I'm an old man, it's back and forth more than ever now because of what I've been able to build and how I've been able to help people on such a personal level. But I guess the filmmaking, and I would do a lot of speaking.
Right.
At filmmaking festivals and events and try to squeeze that in as much as I can. But at the end of the day, I'm a filmmaker. Like at 18 years old, I made that decision making a music video in my mom's garage that this is what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life. So, but also now I want to help people. You know, this digital thing was not the plan. I went to film school just to make movies. And when I got the job at BuzzFeed, I was like, what's YouTube videos? I don't want to make YouTube videos.
How
It's
did you get
crazy.
the job at BuzzFeed? Did you submit anything? I guess the music video that you made or something?
No, that music video sucked. Yeah, no, it was bad. But it was, it goes down in the DMs, man. I was like, I had student loans looming. It was 6 months after film school's over. And I was like, I had a girlfriend in Los Angeles, but I was living in Chicago at the time. And her friend was like, why don't you just apply to like big companies? And I was like, I never even thought about that. I just started like in the industry. No one's gonna hire me. And so I was looking at BuzzFeed, and I literally like, that's why I'm like, just take chances. Like, if you're hearing this, just take chances. Like, just ask. The power of asking is crazy. So I was on Facebook. I saw a BuzzFeed video. I was like, oh, okay, cool. It's funny, whatever. I didn't even watch BuzzFeed. And I scrolled through the comments, and I saw this comment. It was like, hey, I'm the director. Let me know what other ideas that you guys have. And I'm like, no way, this guy works at BuzzFeed. I click on his name, his Facebook. He works at BuzzFeed. I was like, okay, I'm going to message this guy. I'm going to ask him for lunch and just, like, hang out. But then he tagged his other friend, who it was his video. So I clicked on his profile. We have 30 mutual friends. He's from Chicago. That's my in. So I messaged him. I did all my research on him, all his early stuff. I saw how all our friends were connected. And I just messaged, not asking for a job, just like, hey, I'm thinking about moving out there. You know so-and-so. I love your work. Can we get lunch? He was like, dope, sweet, let's get lunch. And pretty much after that lunch, he was like, I'll put your name in the hat for an internship. And that's how I got started.
And then once you got in the game, there's no coming out of the
There's
game.
no coming out of the game. But I learned the power of social media and how important it is. And that's why I try to tell people, like, use it with like authenticity. It's possible. And yeah, it's great what I've been able to build. It gave me such a platform.
Right.
So
now, were you making a lot of videos for better like, but you also put a lot of videos on your personal Instagram?
Yeah.
Were they two separate things?
it was two separate things. So yeah, like, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I can't just do one thing. I have to do like 10 things, or else I feel like I'm not doing enough. So yeah, I had self-hype going on. I was building that while I was working at BuzzFeed and doing better like videos. And yeah, like really kind of just serving the community in the best way I could. And I got really comfortable on camera because of it. So it's been nice.
Well, a good group of Latin talent is coming out of BuzzFeed, and we've had a lot, some of them on the show. We have Ivan Emilio.
Yeah. He's my boy, man.
He's the nicest guy in the world.
He's too sweet. He's like my little brother. Yeah, it's crazy.
And Jenny.
Yeah, Jenny, man.
Last name because I forgot her.
Lorenzo. Yeah.
And Jenny Lorenzo. I'm gonna leave that in just because sometimes I forget people's complete names.
You know so many people. Yeah.
I know her as
fine.
the abuelita. So
yeah,
it's a cool group. Curly, right?
Curly, yeah.
So it's a good group of people, different kind of faces than we're used to seeing.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. We're living in an era of call it, some people would just say it's identity politics. Some people are like, no, these are conversations that we need to have with ourselves, with each other, with our communities. Hopefully on the path towards something that resembles really Martin Luther King's dream of we're all going to be judged on our character. But we still got a couple things we got to hash out and just kind of like, get out there because there's still a lot that we have to deal with. One of the things in the past couple of years that have becoming, thank God, more to the forefront when it was very invisible in previous years was the Afro-Latino experience, right? You yourself, you are Mexican, so half Mexican, half Puerto Rican.
Yeah.
Can I ask, which one is your dad, which one is your mom?
My dad's Puerto Rican, my mom's Mexican, yeah.
Cool. Because sometimes that dynamic is important.
Yeah.
And you grew up in Chicago?
Yeah, right outside Chicago, Northwest Indiana. I always have to explain this. Northwest Indiana, it's the hood, it's the least funded and most diverse county right outside, right next to Chicago.
Wow.
The governor was Governor Pence. We all knew he sucked before everyone else did. So, but yeah, it's the hood over there. But yeah, right outside Chicago, Northwest Indiana.
Interesting. So, and so what was it like growing up for you? I'm sure, especially if you venture out deeper into Indiana, people wouldn't understand what you are. And maybe you go into the south side of Chicago and you're hanging out with like black Americans who are like, wait, hold on, are you black? Are you Latino? Like, and then, maybe Mexicans might be a little bit, wait, hold on, like, help us out. Puerto Ricans were all with because Puerto Ricans, let's be honest, you're white, they're black.
Yeah, they're everything. I mean, there's a complexity with Puerto Ricans too, because it's like, when you're from the hood, man, it's like even the Mexican Puerto Ricans aren't conjoined. It's like, no, the Mexicans over there, the Puerto Ricans over here. Right. And I remember like being a kid and like, oh, what is he? Oh, he's Mexican Puerto Rican. I'm like, what the hell? How did that happen? It was almost like this Romeo Juliet thing that like, I'm like, because my parents loved each other. What the hell? Well, it was probably a party and they got drunk. But either way, it was, there's so much complexity with that. And I meet so many people in Indiana, like middle-aged white dads are like, hey, Hoosier? You're a Hoosier? I'm like, nah, bro, this is totally different Indiana, dog. Ain't no cornfields over here. But and then also, you have people in Chicago, and like, the thing is, like, it's really hard, and it's like, I grew up with all these, like, and that's what reflects the film, is that, our lead is, Luz Azuna, amazing actress. She plays Rosa, named after my grandmother, but she's Afro-Latina, and she's really, she deals with her insecurities of her colorism, of her hair, of all that from her family. And that's something that I dealt with, where if a curl popped out of my head, they called me nappy-headed. They'd make fun of my thighs because I got thick Puerto Rican delicious thighs, you know what I mean? Like, if I get too dark, they call me darky, or the darkest one darky or whatever. And it's like these things that make you feel insecure.
This was within your own family?
My own family. I would say I was black when I was a kid. I'm like, I'm black. And my grandmother was like so proud Puerto Rican, and she is a straight up, if you look at her, she's a black woman. Right. So she locked me in her, this is the 90s, everybody. She locked me in the car, and she said, you're not going to leave this car until you say you're Puerto Rican. Right. And I'm like, I'm black. I'm like, it's kind of a funny story, but when you think about it, whoa, there's some deepness that's there. And this is a complexity that other Latinos don't deal with.
Right.
So, Yeah, it's super complex, and it's comedic, and it's fun. Like, you see Tito Trinidad, like, fighting De La Hoya, and it's the Mexican Puerto Rican, right? And I'm in the middle. I'm like, what the hell am I, who do I choose? I guess I look like the Puerto Rican guy, so I'm going to go with him. So there's a lot of funny moments. And it's funny how the industry now is like, we want those moments.
Right.
You know, it's like, write those moments. So
take advantage of that. That moment. But,
quick.
Yeah.
Can I just stop you guys real
Yeah.
quick?
Yeah.
I'm just getting a little bit low on your mic real quick. Not you, you're good.
Oh, that's what it is.
That's fucking dope right there. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
You need to write that into like a...
Well, we have it. So, like, I'll give you like the quick rundown. See, I'm HC Guida. I'm for novels. I'm doing HC.
Okay.
I wrote it with Bradley M. Smith. That's not his real name. I can say who his real name is. His real name is Carlos Perez. He's a well-known nightlife promoter, and he owns art galleries in Miami. But he also got involved in a lot of crazy stuff. His partner ended up getting killed by drug dealers that he robbed. This is the '90s, the mid to late '90s. They threw the first rave in South Beach. The guys that threw Ultra came up from under these guys. Wow. So a guy named Johnny Dominguez, who was like a thug guy. Little Havana, that kind of like street kind of Cuban who went to go play pro baseball, ends up getting hurt, after he's drafted by the Marlins, whatever. And then he starts promoting clubs, but he also starts dealing drugs. And then when they start throwing raves, the first couple of years, it's like, whoa, it's so cool. All these, it was very hippie. They got infected by that vibe. But after a couple of years, man, you start doing drugs, you could start getting jaded and dark. And this guy, was like, there's a lot of twerps coming through our party selling drugs. Why don't we have a piece of that? So he started basically robbing a bunch of people, and then he worked his way up, and then he ends up getting killed. So my friend, the partner, he's like, he was investigated for the murder. He's like, I'm not going to use my real name because I have businesses and all this other stuff. Wow. And we had a PR person. You want to talk about like Latino arrepentido? We had a PR person who's like, both of your names are too Latino. This is also why I went with HC Guida, although now my screenplays are going to say Humberto Guida. But he's like, well, the PR person's like, by Carlos Perez with Humberto Guida, no white person is going to read that book.
Is that crazy?
So he's like, well, look, I didn't want to use my real name anyway.
Yeah.
And I have a pen name because for my print shop, I deal with people from the Midwest, and they won't reply very well to Carlos Perez. So I use Bradley Smith. So I'm just gonna use Bradley Smith as my pen name, and people know that Bradley Smith is Carlos Perez.
Right. Okay, this is that crazy. That's wild.
It's wild. So I'm like, I'm not changing my name, but I'll use the initials like a lot of writers do, and then people will wonder, make it a little more generic.
It sounds fancy. Yeah. I mean, it's, whatever works. But it's the kind of shitty that it's like, and I'm sorry, as a Midwesterner, we receive your name that way.
Not your type of Midwesterner.
Right. Very different. But it's were you a Hoosier? Yeah, that Midwesterner. Yeah, you're a Hoosier.
So they respond better to Brad Smith. But getting back to like the Afro-Latino experience, it's interesting because I grew up in Miami where we experienced white flight. So the white people in Miami are basically just light-skinned Latinos. If you're white-looking and you're Cuban or Venezuelan or Colombian, there's a lot of those, right? Myself to a certain degree, but growing up though, my family. First of all, I've done my genealogy. I did have a great grandfather who was Afro-Cuban, and you see on my genealogy I have a certain amount of genes that comes from West Africa and all that stuff. It's in our family but we. The way that my family would refer to a black Cuban versus a black American was very different, right? A black American was negro, right? A black Cuban, they were Cuban, but they were still an acknowledgement, especially from the black. My grandmother had a friend, and she would always point out that she was black, almost kind of throwing it on everybody's face because I know what I'm saying, because she would get like the subtle stuff. So she would bring up her kinky hair and all that stuff, and that's when I started realizing, okay, you could be part of a nationality, but we're different races, but kind of linked. It was an interesting thing and a curious thing to see, and then when my family was fairly progressive and liberal and open-minded about certain things. I had an aunt that was married to an Afro-Cuban as well, and I have cousins that are Afro-Cuban. But when I would hang out with other families, and I'd hear some of their, especially like a very white Cuban family, and I'd hang out with, and I'd hear the parents talk about like, oh, don't go in this part of the city because and I was like, wow, there's some really racist things within our community. So that was a lot to figure out and unpack, and I'm still unpacking it. But I'm glad that this is a conversation that's being had because, especially with Latinos, because there's so many different races mixed in. Yeah. It's not as nice and neat as other colonialists like the English. They came in and they either enslaved somebody that was a different color or pushed all the indigenous people. They weren't. The Spanish, is horrible and horrific and abusive as they were, they did one thing that you can look at as not positive, let's just say constructive to our community. They took indigenous and African women as wives, and they had, children that were of different races, and that complicates our story to other people. That's why they don't understand the spectrum of Latino.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, that's the thing. It's like we have to just see it as for what it is.
Right.
Is like, we're still figuring it out. Like, and no one can blame us for figuring it out. No one can blame us for putting an X or an A after Latino, Latinx, Latina, Latina. No one. We're still figuring out who we are, but the thing is, what are we? Like, what at the end of the day, like, what do we just accept?
We're the cosmic race.
We're the cosmic race.
Have you heard that?
I haven't heard that, actually. I haven't heard, but I love that, though. It's like, at a certain point, I'm like, you have to acknowledge people's experiences, because like, we're all African. If you're for a Latino, like, there's some sort of percentage that's there.
Right.
But what we're talking about is, how are you perceived in your everyday life, right? I mean, that's kind of the conversation. But everyone's a piece of that.
Yeah.
And everyone's Spanish in some sort of, or indigenous in some sort of way. But it's like, it's the crazy thing. It's like, especially in this era of just identity and talking about it, and it's complex in itself. But I mean, and that's the other part, not to bring back my film again, but like, there's all this smorgasbord of different colors and people, and all these girls deal with these insecurities, but they all have to come together to get things done. So my big thing is like, let's all figure it out. But let's give each other grace, and also let's just finally come together.
Yeah.
Like, you're Cuban,
Right.
I'm Puerto Rican. A lot of people, there's like memes of like,
Right.
Cuban girls and Puerto Rican. Motherfucker, we're the same thing. And like,
Oh,
you're down
totally.
the street.
Totally.
You know, it's like,
Totally.
so once we get rid of that stuff and we just come together with a unified just vision of something, and then we get things done. Because you're right, African Americans have a direct narrative, and they're crushing it. Look at Hollywood. We need to get on that in the Hollywood sense and in every industry.
Well, look, man. One of the battles I've been fighting, since I got into the industry is everyone has a right to complain, but I think that the Latin community, and by the way, I go between saying Latinx, Latino,
It's fine.
Latin. I'm going back to Latin. But it's complicated.
Yeah.
I feel that the Latin community, everyone has a right to complain, but when it comes to representation and media and entertainment, I feel we are the most gypped. The most gypped. Asians are gypped too. The thing is that, and what I'm about to say might be politically incorrect, but Asians have really done well cementing themselves economically and unifying economically, and we see that, right? We see that in median income and all that kind of stuff, education levels, props to them.
Yeah.
And the African American community, the Black community, whatever accepted term is now, while they have a lot of issues with systemic racism, obviously with policing and also discrimination when getting a job. When it comes to the entertainment industry, they have made their mark and they have paved the way, for that. Sometimes people do the stereotype that, oh, okay, if you're a Black person, then of course you're gonna sing and dance and act, and that's horrible. But let's give props to the positive aspect that Black people have really made that space for themselves in entertainment. I don't feel that Latin people, because we haven't, number one, it goes back to the complexity. We're all very different. So how do we unify?
Yeah.
It's been a little complicated, sometimes we get upset because we're all considered Mexican. I know you're half Mexican, the Puerto Rican side.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, well, are we offending our Mexican peeps by being offended that we're being confused for Mexican?
Yeah,
so we got to come together, and we have to get the entertainment industry to allow us to tell our way more complex story than they understand.
Yes. Yes.
So
exactly. I mean, because there's so many stories. Like, thank God we have shows now that are like the Mexican experience,
Right.
like the gentrification, whatever stories that are on major platforms. Like
props to
Netflix and
Hantified. I
Starz
would
and
love for them to
Hantified.
bring back,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, but there's like so many other stories. Like, go to New York City. Let's see Dominicans do their thing. Puerto Ricans, all that. Like, there could be a story of Chicago Puerto Ricans, like Cubans in Miami. Like, there's so many stories. Generational things, third, fourth generation with like first generation. I'm like, there's so many stories in the complexity that can be celebrated, and by making narratives opens it up and opens our own eyes in our own community of the experiences that people go through. So like, it's necessary.
1 second. Okay, Oscar, I'm getting a call from Joy Medina. Can you just poke your head out and say that we're 15 minutes? Okay. All right, we're still rolling, right? Okay. So that actually brings us, bringing up that kind of stuff with the identity stuff, I want to bring up the subject that you actually came to speak on the zoo about, because I think, and speaking of identity politics, you're talking about, giving some leeway, and obviously you don't want to excuse racism and certain things, but like with the whole Rogan controversy, where he, I've been following Rogan for years. I actually don't think he's the best comedian because I've gone to his comedy shows. I don't really laugh.
No.
He's like a feel good, like, oh, I agree with you. Oh, he's fun,
Yeah.
but funny. But he's a superb conversationalist, and he'll talk to anybody about anything, right? And he does the UFC, which we're both into and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I've been listening to him for a long time. And I've heard a lot of those times where he uttered the N-word. And I cringed at the moment that he did that. I'm like, they're going to come back for that. But I don't think he's a racist.
Right.
And so I think that you kind of hit that on the head about, like, people mess up. And how they handle it, and you can call them out on it.
Yeah.
But maybe deplatforming and canceling it backfires, and that's where sometimes the identity politics I back up a little bit. I'm like, we can call people out, but how far do you want to go with shutting them down? Because are they going to learn from that?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, I don't know. Because my whole thing of it is like, I know people that have said ignorant stuff, like white friends that have said ignorant stuff. I'm not gonna like not be their friends anymore. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna check them, say, yo, this ain't cool. But if they keep not coming correct and that they're disrespecting me as a friend or disrespecting the community as a whole, and they don't get that, then clearly you're not the type of person I need to align myself with. But I have known you for years. So, and I never got this feeling that you're this inherent and terrible person. You just say some messed up stuff sometimes. So if I check you and you come better, then I gave you that grace and you're a better person because of it. And I'm able to give you that viewpoint of why, rather than saying, screw you, I'm never gonna talk to you again. So when it comes to media and stuff, I've listened to Joe Rogan podcast throughout the years. And I'm like, I know he's not a bad guy. Like, he works at the UFC. There's tons of like black UFC fighters that are defending him. So it's like, he did mess up. He did all that. But I would rather have him bring those people on and have conversations on that platform than totally get rid of it. Because I think everyone wants to nitpick and find the things that they don't align with or they don't like. And it's like with Joe Rogan, there's complexity there because he brings Alex Jones, who's a crazy right-wing whatever, gives him a platform. But he also gives Bernie Sanders a platform when people, and CNN ain't even giving him airtime.
And he also questions, when he brings some of these like right-wing conspiracy types, he does question them. And he's like, well, let's check on this, and look, sometimes they're completely wrong, but sometimes they hit us something that is worth, considering. So I wanted to, because we're both UFC fans, I wanted to touch upon, before we get into that though, so today, this is gonna be dated because this is gonna air like a week or two from now. But today they lifted off the mask mandate. Are you like?
Wait, they lifted it here?
Yeah. Well, in LA.
Oh snap!
It's been like so it's been like 2 long years, bro.
Wow.
So hopefully this is a sign that we're kind of coming out of this for.
Bruh, it ain't gonna. You already know next week there'll be like, Deltacron, the Thanos VO version 2.
That's hilarious.
Or whatever. I mean, I don't believe it until. I don't know. Fauci does a backflip or
he
goes
hasn't.
to a rave.
Well, he hasn't been. He's been doing way less interviews, which I think is a sign of the fact that we might be coming out of. Oh no, going back, I wanted to point out. Have you noticed that since the controversy with the N-word with Rogan, that he's had like half of his guests have been black. He had Freddie Gibbs on the other day.
Oh yeah.
He had like Don Rollins.
Conversations.
But he's you can tell like Freddie Gibbs is right. He's a rapper. He's crazy.
Yeah.
They had a great opening to their episode of the podcast because he was like saying, "Man, you fucked up, Joe. You fucked up. You shouldn't have said that. But I know you're not a racist.
That's what
but you fucked up, Joe." And he's like, "I know." It was
know.
a great exchange. All right, going to the UFC thing. The first only Mexican heavyweight of all time. And I've interviewed him, because I used to do a lot of interviews with Latin UFC fighters. For Latin Nation, you can check it on LATV. Wow. And Cain Velasquez, one of the most stand-up men in MMA and sports.
Yeah, dude.
A guy who's actually he's a savage beast, but he's the calmest guy. He's never, been involved in any criminality, anything like that. He just got arrested. For people that don't know the stories, I believe it's going to be a national story beyond. Right now, it's doing the MMA circles. Watch this because it's a story of a father, especially a father like him. I mean, a very masculine, macho, Latino Mexican guy, and his child. And this is going to be public knowledge, so I don't mind getting into the details. I'm not like exposing. It's believed to be his 4-year-old son at a daycare was molested by a 40-something-year-old man who lived on the site and was the son of the owner of the daycare. He was released from jail, right? And that's some of the issues we're having right now in California with who's getting released right away and who's not after they get arrested. But they released him from jail. Probably should have done the research on who the father of the victim was, right?
Right.
because now they're creating a situation, and because he was released from jail, Cain Velasquez, went and tried to confront this man, and it turned into an attempted murder charge. We'll just leave it at that. A shooting occurred, and he's in jail right now. I don't know if you saw the mugshot of Cain Velasquez.
He looks proud.
He's
like nothing.
This is going to become the story, and I think a lot of people who typically are not defenders of criminals are going to look at this case. And I'm not saying that what he did was right. Again, he's going to serve time. But there might be a rally around mitigating the amount of his sentence, because this is a father that was trying to protect his son, who was repeatedly molested from someone who has been accused of molesting children even previous, right? So it's not like, okay, this is a one-time thing. Maybe your kid is imagining things, which has happened. Yeah. No, multiple kids, but his kid was one of them.
That's hard. I mean, it's like, because the thing is, like, he was literally bumped this car and was shooting shots in like a highway pursuit or something. I don't know if it was a highway or whatever. There was a chase. Yeah. And he openly was firing at this car. And there was 2 other people in that car. And I believe one got hit that wasn't the guy. Right. And so that's where it gets messy, because it's like you're open firing out in public. Someone could have got hit. Something could have happened. You could have hurt other people that wasn't a part of it. Like, if he just went over there and beat the out of the guy, I'd be like, okay, cool, dope. But like, everyone said they would do. Everyone says they would do something if that happened to them. He did it, and I would do the same thing. If one of my little sisters, like, if I heard something like that, I will fly my ass down to Chicago right now. I'll be like, yo, sorry, this podcast is over, and I'll go whoop some ass. Like, I've done jujitsu, I can whoop some ass too. So it's like, that's the thing. It's like, I get the intention, but it's like, he's gonna serve time no matter what. But I do agree. How can we? Rather than 20 years, how can we have as little time as possible?
Like, people are hoping it's like a 5-year sentence and he comes out a hero. I mean, the mugshot says it all. Mm-hmm. He does not regret what he did.
No regrets.
And he's a man from another time. I mean, he's an Aztec warrior, from centuries ago. This is a different kind of person.
Yeah.
And he's not gonna just sit idly by and wait for district attorneys and public defenders to sort this out.
Yeah. How can you live with the idea and see your kid waking up and knowing what they've gone through while this guy's at like Whole Foods or something? Like, that would boil me just knowing that. But I'm like, oh, man. I think it's like a big issue with the justice system. Like, why was this guy let out? Who says he's not going to do it again while he's waiting for his sentencing? Yeah. That is the worst thing you could possibly do. So there needs to be some checks and balances there. It's not right what he did, but by God, I understand it. I think everyone does. So it's like, and I don't want them. And what hurts me that with this justice system is that, oh, this man's a UFC fighter. He's a cage fighter, and he's Latino, and he has a brown pride tattoo on his chest, and he beats up people. If we let him out, what else is he gonna do? I'm like, I can't know if I can cuss here, but mofo, you let the freaking molester out. Yeah. I'm like, what are you talking about? Yeah. Like, it's so complex, but like, yo, Cain, I'm here for you, dog. I want those 20 years as little as possible, and it sucks. And I hope it was max amount of years for the dude that did that, because I do not play that shit. That's like the worst thing you can possibly do.
Look, sometimes good people do bad things, in the name of justice, and it gets complicated. Getting towards the end of this, I wanted to. So, do you do stand-up comedy?
I never did stand-up comedy. I always wanted to, but I never really.
I mean, you're a public speaker. You're funny. You write. You've never done an open mic or anything like that?
I never did it. I always wanted to. I did Second City Improv. Okay. I did like a show there, but I never did stand. It's on my to-do. It's on like my bucket list. Like middle-aged people are like, I need to switch up my life. I'm gonna do it eventually, but no, I never did it. My friend Gadiel de Orbe, he's a hilarious stand-up comic. I've been bugging him to like, yo, show me the ways, dog. Okay. So one day, I think so. I don't know. I never did it before. I don't know.
Do you still do the jiu-jitsu?
No, man. I'm traveling so much, and so I try to find some gyms while I'm like hanging out or whatever. But my knees will probably shatter
when you're in town. No, we should do like a little rolling day. I've only done like an intro class to jiu-jitsu. I actually did Muay Thai. I'm more.
Hey, cool.
I'm not thick and strong, so my thing is just to like create enough distance to run. I'm not kicking anyone's ass. I'll punch you to run. I'll knee you to run if I feel I'm being attacked. But jiu-jitsu is like a commitment. But
dude.
Everything goes to the ground. If it's one-on-one, ultimately the person that knows how to grapple will have the advantage.
Oh yeah. No, I actually went to Thailand and did Muay Thai for a month. Yeah, because I was obsessed. I got obsessed with UFC when I was like 15. So I started in jiu-jitsu and I was like, I'm gonna do Muay Thai. Yeah. And I left on Mother's Day to tell my mom. I was like 22. I was like, fuck it. I just used like my savings and just went to Thailand, fucked off, and just trained. But it's fun, man.
All right. Did I try to guess your sign when you came for the zoo?
You guess my sign?
Yeah. Did I guess your sign when you came for the zoo?
No.
Okay. Let me guess right now. Libra.
No.
Okay.
Okay. That was my ex. Yeah, dude. Man. Yeah.
Leo.
Close.
Virgo?
No.
Oh, a Cancer?
I'm a Cancer.
I hate telling people they're a Cancer.
Well, I'm Cancer proud, man.
I know, because it's like, hey, you're a Cancer. You know, like
I know, but I'm like, I think a Leo rising or something,
I see
which
that.
explains the
forwardness
or whatever. But I'm a romantic. You know what I mean? I always tell ladies I'm like the perfect match.
Dude, you are the perfect match, and you're a romantic. And if I had a daughter or a sister or someone that was available, I'd want her to be with you. But I got a feeling, bro.
What?
That you're the kind of guy that you're a romantic, you're really in love, you're the perfect mate, but like sometime down the line, something catches your eye just because you're such a romantic.
Oh, come on.
But you're not gonna cheat on your wife when you get a wife.
I won't cheat on my wife. My thing is like, I never want to be the sad guy. And I said this in college. I was like, and that's why I was single all throughout college, is like, I never want to be the dad that's pushing the stroller, that sees the hot girl run by and is like, I want to be the dad that pushes the stroller, sees the hot girl, and by like, I had a good time, and then keeps it going. That's what I want to do. So dude, like, I'm happy.
Get that short film done.
Yes.
Bodies will tumble and roll.
Yep.
We'll probably be seeing it sometime after the LATV premiere. I'm sure at some point we'll find a distributor and we'll see it in the summer. Keep on doing your thing, dude. And dude, I'll see you soon. If you're in town for the next Zoo taping, we're gonna have you back on. You're gonna be talking. I'm gonna give you the most controversial subject as I did last time.
I know you threw me to the wolves.
Well, because I feel that you have the right positive vibe to handle the controversial stuff.
Yeah.
Like I can't do it so much because I'll get like in a conversation like this, yes, but like in a panel discussion, I get too worked up. And then it seems like I'm screaming. I'm like, no, I'm just Cuban from Miami, and when we get passionate, we sound like we're yelling at you.
Yeah,
you know?
of course. Yeah. No, dude, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the book. It sounds freaking awesome. Yeah. I can't wait to read it and the whole production. Thank you for bringing me in.
You're amazing. Ali, you've been on Checkitow.
Hey.
Beautiful.
Nice, dude.
Thank you, Oscar.